Hey, Rebel Bankers, this is your host, Chris Noggle, and welcome back to the Real Estate Money School. So I'm joined today by Kevin Shortle, and Kevin is what I would call the notes guy. So I met Kevin at an event out in Arizona where we were both speaking, and I heard him talk, and you know what? It was just so unique what he said, because I don't do notes. So when he was talking and telling how he does it, how simple what he does is, I was intrigued. Not only was I intrigued, I'm just like, wow, how does this play into the things that I'm doing, the things that I'm teaching? And it absolutely did. So Kevin's been in the business for 30 years. He's got $30 million in transactions, and his company is called Real Estate Without Renters. Think about that. You could be in real estate, but you don't have to get the calls on Thanksgiving, on Sunday, on Christmas, on Easter, and you get to drift. Groundhog's Day is another day that they will call you and tell you that the basement is flooded and there's brown things floating around. If you don't want that, Kevin's your guy, because he'll show you how to do real estate without the renters. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to get into this, and we'll jump right in a moment, but I want to talk to the listeners real quick, and we do this every single time. We talk about your journey to becoming a Rebel Banker. And on this journey, it's very important not to just get knowledge, not to just listen to these podcasts, but to actually take action. If you don't take action on what you learn, if you don't take action on the things you're doing, how can you ever live your perfect day? How can you ever live the life that you want if you're not taking action? I don't know one successful business owner that is where they're at by not taking action, by not taking the necessary steps and things that they need to do to get there. And, you know, one of the things you could do to take action is grab a copy of one of my books, and I'm willing to give them to you for free. Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, or, hey, maybe you need money. How about the Private Money Guide? I literally wrote the book on private money. So I'll give you each of these books. You can have both, or you can have one, your choice, and you can have them for free. So the link will be in the description. It's moneyschoolrei.com/book for the Private Money Guide, or /new book for Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery. So take action, get the book, read it, and then apply that knowledge. Application is what gets results. So Kevin, you know, tell the audience a little bit about your business today, because I know it's evolved quite a bit, and now we're in COVID, you know, this crazy economic disaster, whatever you want to call what we're in, but things are changing. So tell everybody like what your business is, what you do, and kind of let's talk a little bit about what's happening now.
Yeah, your message when you started about application and taking action, boy, is that right on the spot. Every training that I do, I study not only when I teach people in the business. I'm a student of education, and I take time to learn about how adults learn, how do they absorb information, and most importantly, how can they get over that speed bump from learning to application. So I just wanted to say that about your message there, and that's so important to do. And I guess to extend upon that, in my business today, I've taken it the industry to a different level in my business. You know, I had some time to kind of reflect on what everybody was doing in the industry, because I've been around long enough, as you said, 30 years. So I know everybody out there and what they're teaching. And I recognized what was missing. And thankfully for my business, I put everything online about a year and a half ago, just out of circumstance. So it was kind of serendipitous as all this was unfolding. It really didn't affect me. And I'm now really also working with people personally, and I have found that to be effective. I mean, most people do group coaching, which there's value to, no question about it. But I think today, with all the uncertainty, with the unknown, it does make a difference to handhold somebody through deals and through formats such as this. So that's really what my focus is now, is helping people accelerate their businesses and get involved in the note space.
Yeah, and I think the note space is fantastic, not just from the standpoint of buying notes and collecting passive income, but also generating and creating notes. And I remember listening to you speak out there in Arizona, and I remember thinking through everything you were saying, because I think I spoke right after, or maybe it was right before you. It was one of the two. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I've been creating notes the whole time, but I had no idea that there was a secondary market for these notes. And I had no idea how to actually create the notes that could be sold into the secondary market. Literally, my head was just like, it got this big. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I don't have the first clue how the hell to do this. And I was like, this guy does. So that's where I started listening. And, that's the awareness, that's that step where you learn something new and you're like, oh my God, this could be that thing I'm looking for, but then you got to take action. And I'm an action taker, but I will be remiss to say that I didn't take action on that. I remember I spoke, we got really busy at that event, and then, life just goes on. And that's just what happens, right? We go to an event, we get fired up, we learn that one new idea, but that doesn't mean anything, because when we come home, we get back in that negative mindset, we get back in that routine of being overly busy, and then everything we learn just right out the door. So what is your story? Like, Kevin, how did this all come to be? Take us back to the beginning when, you got into the real estate business or the notes business. What did things look like?
I always had a keen interest for some reason with real estate, reading books and everything else. In fact, years ago, I remember going through my high school yearbook, and seeing in there, hey, good luck with real estate, Kevin. I'm like, wow, I must have been talking about real estate, all the way back through high school. So when I graduated college, I immediately got into real estate as a commercial real estate appraiser. And then about a year and a half doing that. And of course, that was pre-internet days and all that. So I really had to learn research. And that's helped me tremendously, obviously, later on in the note business. But I physically had to go to the courthouse and go through the microfilm and all that kind of stuff. And I figured the big bucks was actually selling real estate. So I tried that for a year. And I bought my first property working at the real estate office. We used to have ANQ loans, assumable non-qualifying loans. You just take over a loan, just on a signature. So I bought my first place that way. I'm like, this is the way to get it going here. And it's tough, when you're trying stuff on your own and you have no guidance, books and everything can only take you so far. And just out of circumstance, my wife introduced me to this guy who just made a note transaction. And I'm like, well, what's real estate notes? I had no idea. And he showed me the check he made for 15 grand just on putting a deal together. And I'm like, I got to learn that, So we got together, we hit it off, and we started the business from there. And it was such a niche back then. It's amazing to see it today where it's really evolved into its own asset class. I mean, we have people today that, they're used to investing in stocks and bonds and maybe real estate, rental property, stuff like that. And now there's been this significant shift over the last couple of years where people say, notes have to be a part of my portfolio, no matter what type of investments I focus on. And now funds and things like that have made it accessible for people. So it's really been great to see. And I think combining, I know a lot of your listeners have a real estate background. I think the smartest investors moving forward are going to combine the best of real estate with the best of real estate notes. And that's what my book was all about, is combining those two skills. And I think that's what really makes you much better prepared for the marketplace.
It's interesting. You said something in there, I like that story of how you got into it and assumable mortgages. So, some commercial mortgages still are assumable, but it's just not a signature and you all of a sudden take over the mortgage. But those still exist, and a lot of people don't know that. But you had made mention, of 15,000. A lot of people, when they think about getting into real estate, there's usually a big barrier of entry. They're thinking, oh my God, I got to have all this money to be able to get into real estate. But in the note space, what is the entry point? Like, how much can someone have to invest in the note space, and what could they expect from a return?
Well, today it's totally different. Again, the 15,000 back, 30 years ago, that was that was a lot of money. It's still good money today, but it was like, wow. But that was the catalyst that really said, okay, I gotta figure this out, and really did. But today's note business, again, I think there's been a change where you can invest actively, you can invest passively, and you can enter into the industry investing in a fund or you can invest individual notes. And I think moving forward, most investors who are in this space are going to do both. A combination of investing in a fund, because you can keep that money active at work. For example, we have a fund called Money with Meaning Fund, MWM Fund. And with that fund, we specifically target non-performing notes where we feel that there's a strong probability that we can help that person stay in their home by modifying that loan. So when we modify that loan, we enhance the value, just like rehabbing a house, right? That's what you do. You fix a broken house, we fix broken notes, broken loans, and enhance the value. That fund, because it's a Regulation A plus fund, you don't have to be an accredited investor. You know, that's been a big change over the last couple of years. Non-accredited investors were held out of some of the best opportunities. Our fund, we set the price because we literally wanted a fund where everybody could participate. It's a $200 minimum investment. I mean, so there's really no excuse. You can invest.
Yeah,
monthly.
there really isn't.
You can use IRA funds and everything else. And we actually even I put together a special little course for that where you pay $200, you get the course, and we also get put $200 in an account for you. So, I mean, it's really a great way to get started. I'm a part of that fund. We manage it and everything else. So you could literally just do it at that level. Now, that fund will pay investors up to 10%, okay? To make more than that, you want to invest in individual notes. And in the individual notes, well, you saw some of the advanced techniques that I at the event we were at in Arizona, where literally you could own a note for free. You could use $100 out of your IRA to control $100,000 worth of notes. So you could literally, and I could show you how to make an infinite return if you own the note for free. But realistically today, we have, because of the last crash, we have what we call well-seasoned notes. Season is payment history, right? So we have a good track record where people have been making payments for the last 7-8 years in a row. They've established equity in the property, and you can buy those notes off the shelf, let's say, for anywhere from $20,000 upwards to $100,000, and you're making somewhere between 9 and 15% right off the shelf. Now, again, if you take that note and then you apply some advanced techniques, you can make that return higher. But, where else can you, anywhere in the investment industry, I mean, where else can you go and invest in something where you're making double digits returns and the collateral backing your investment is worth twice as much as you have in it? That's one of the strongest things that I love about the note business.
Well, I think that's an important thing that you just said there. Whether it's $200 a month, $200 at once, $15,000, whatever someone wants to invest. I think back to what I do, where I teach and help people set up the banking systems, privatized banking, infinite banking concept, whatever you want to call it. And One of the most important things for that concept is moving your money. The biggest thing banks do and the wealthy do is they have gotten good at moving money. We, as most people I speak to, are taught to just leave our money sit. And when our money sits, we're not making enough on it, if we're making anything, and somebody else is making money on our money. But when we're moving our money, that's the trigger to making it all work and making a lot more. So I look at it, and this is what that big light bulb I had go off when we were there, is I'm thinking, I've got all these people that got these banking systems. So they use them to buy cars, they use them to pay off debt, they use them to buy real estate, but then eventually, as they start doing this, there's more and more and more money, and then they don't know what to do with that money. This would be a perfect solution. They can take the money in their banking systems, move it over into the notes business, and then whether it's a note or a fund, and then they can now make between, what was the returns? 9 and what did you say?
9 to 15.
9 to 15. Yeah, just to kind of get started. Now, all of a sudden, the banking policy is paying you, the 4% interest plus dividends, and you're now making 9 to 14%. I mean, it's just a perfect natural fit. But I want to take a step back, Kevin, because I think one of the things in this that is we're kind of going right over, I know there's going to be some listeners that are like, notes, what are notes? Is that like I take my notebook and I write a note? And let's tell them what a note actually is. I mean, they will know when you explain it, because I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah. they probably don't understand this. So how would you describe a note in the simplest form?
The easiest way I can explain that is this. If you have ever borrowed money to buy real estate, again, we'll just use that as an example because most of your investors or listeners can relate to that. If you've ever borrowed money to buy real estate, you've been in the note business, but you've been on the paying side. What we do is get on the receiving side. Okay, so a note is simply an IOU. I can create a note if I sell a property with seller financing. That's a note. So you can create notes. or you can buy notes that already exist. So let's say you have a piece of real estate you sold with seller financing, you created that note, I had nothing to do with it, but maybe you want to cash out of that note now. That's where I come along and say, well, I'll buy that note. And that's really the nature of the business. And there's a lot of parallels between it and real estate because it is a part of real estate. It's just the other side of the same coin, if you will. It's the financial side of real estate. And that's why it's so important for real estate investors to understand, if you have the skills on the real estate side and you also then have the skills in the financial side of real estate, it just opens up all these other opportunities that you simply didn't see before. So that's really all it is. It's the financial side of real estate, long-term cash flows that are created.
And, I know a lot of people, and if they haven't, they need to have read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's kind of the book, I think you would agree that's like the book that started it for so many real estate investors. And, I just, for the third time, I hadn't read that book in a long time, but I read it again recently and I realized like it starts off slow and I'm like, all right, come on, get to the point, just because I've kind of, gotten to the point where I know that. But then at the middle and the end of that book, it's some golden stuff in there, some stuff that every single person needs to learn. And, then like you take that stuff and you excel that into what you're doing, into, the banking policies that we do, and you combine it all, it creates a absolutely unmatched, investment strategy. And all you're doing, it's so simple. All you're doing is moving money. It's all you're doing, right. Money in, and then the checks come back and you redeploy them out. And eventually that's what creates what Kiyosaki said, passive income. That's where those mailbox checks just start coming in every day and you're not working any harder for them. Like that's what we all want, right? People talk about retirement and everything else, but how many people do you know, Kevin, that are retired that literally just rode off, in their sailboat into the sunset and they're living happily ever after? How many people do you know like that?
Oh yeah, that's a lot of the people, a lot of the clients that I have. That's what they're looking to do, and right. Because this is an allowable investment, a lot of them with IRAs and 401ks. My mission with my clients is to have 100% of them invested and 100% of them have retirement accounts set up. Because when you're making double-digit returns and higher, and you're doing it in a tax-free environment. Boy, if we were to chart that out on a graph, boy, that it would just be, through the roof. And that's it. Doesn't, again, you could build up with rental properties the same thing. But I talk with so many former now landlords, because at some point you're still managing it. Everybody's got property managers, but you're still getting the okay, no, don't do this. And with the paper side, you're the bank. Don't call me when your roof is leaking. I don't own the property. So it's a much different way of looking at real estate, and it is very, very interesting to see seasoned investors just make that transition from real property to real paper, and enjoying every step of it.
A wise investor once told me, and it was somebody I met early on when I was in a really rough place. He said, the ultimate in this business is being the bank. And you just mentioned and solidified that. We all think, oh, the ultimate is flipping a whole bunch of houses. The ultimate is wholesaling a whole bunch of properties. No and no. Because really what you're doing by flipping houses and what you're doing by doing a lot of wholesale deals is creating more and more transactional job. You're creating a job, because once you stop transacting, your income ends. Like, correct. Then what? You get hurt or something happens or COVID hits, your business stops, your income stops. And then you're sitting there saying, wow, that was a nice ride. Now what? Right? With the note business, with the passive income business, with everything we're talking about, your paychecks don't stop. The checks still show up to the mailbox. Like, that's the beauty of this whole thing. And I think you mentioned one thing about that riding off into the into the sunset in retirement. A lot of people don't realize that they can use their IRAs, their old 401ks, to invest into real estate passively, which means you're not working any harder for it. So for just some of you don't even maybe know what passive versus active means. Active, you're out there doing it. You're grinding. You're owning the property. You're getting the calls on Easter saying, hey, the basement's flooded and there's brown things floating around. Passive, you're sitting on the beach or drinking your coffee or your cocktail saying, well, too bad about that basement flooded. Please make sure my check shows up every month. Passive is exactly that. You do nothing. You're the one that's being the bank and controlling the money aspect of it. And that's just, by all intents and purposes, the ultimate, because that's what provides the life you want. That's what provides the ability to live the day, your perfect day. And that is what creates your permission slip to do and be or live the way you want to live. And, you teach this stuff. And I think it's fascinating because there's a couple people, I know there's one guy who I hear about all the time, but I think, no disrespect to him, we're not going to mention names, but isn't he getting a little older now? When are you going to fill those seats as being the number one note guy out there?
Well, ironically enough, I've created programs and I've done a lot of stuff in the background where there are other people training that I essentially created their training, platforms and things like that. So I'm kind of known as the trainer's trainer. It's even on my book because there's a lot of people in the industry that I've actually, trained, and they went on and did their own thing there. But, my thing now is, I don't want to be the biggest. I really don't. I just want to be the best. I'm not looking to have a bunch of employees and again, I think the personal connection is still important. I'm enjoying that quite a bit, so I'm going to continue to work with people that way. So for me, it's just let the results speak for themselves versus being the biggest company out there in this space. But something happens with people know your name and people understand what you do, and that's more important to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. One of the other things too, like if people are listening to this about notes, I mean, what are the first steps? Like someone wants to do this, they're like, wow, this sounds great. What is step number one?
Yeah, on the surface, again, it looks pretty easy. You're just buying a contract that somebody else already created. But the reality is, like any investment, there's risks, right? And so my big thing, the way I approach this has always been you identify risk first, and then you look at reward. Okay, because ultimately we can change our reward either by offering less money, backing away for the deal, or applying an advanced strategy later on. So it comes down to risk first, and that's where you've got a decision. You're going to get educated one way or another, right? And you probably say this as well to your folks. You can learn by the school of hard knocks. And I've seen people get completely wiped out. For example, years ago, had a lady come up to me and she goes, I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to pay my education up front this time so I don't make stupid mistakes. She bought her first note. She spent maybe $18,000 on her first note. Good looking note, by the way. The problem was it had unpaid property taxes on the collateral. So on the home that was backing this note, unpaid property taxes. Well, property taxes in every state in the United States is a senior lien, and it can cause and will eventually cause a foreclosure. So the property, before she got her paperwork back, the foreclosure happened for non-payment of taxes, not the mortgage, for non-payment of property taxes. The auction went off, the property was sold, her lien's wiped out. It's gone. Lesson learned. So there are things like this. So getting started in the space, of course, is educating yourself, up front and understanding, what the risks are. And I think someone who goes in better educated then can get quicker results. I've seen people, that come to me and they, for 2 years, they're going, yeah, I've been looking at notes for a couple of years now. How many bought? Well, I haven't bought any yet.
That's what we talked about earlier about you gotta take action.
Well, because I saw this. Well, in classes and instructions and stuff, it's all so easy. Everybody's like, yeah, what about this? What about this? And they see all the numbers or all the money and they go, I got it. But when you have to write that check, then all of a sudden, all of those fears come out because you're lacking, certain information. Absolutely. So that's certainly the way to do it. But, one of the big advantages today is inventory. Inventory is readily available. You can look at inventory 24/7. I'm a close associate with PaperStack, and PaperStack is a trading platform. It's like an MLS of notes. And it's free. You go on there, you can log in, you can see all the notes. So inventory is not the issue. It's the ability to find the good inventory, know how to target it properly. You mentioned earlier, this industry it can provide you lump sum. It can provide you long-term passive income. It can also provide you real estate. Some people buy notes just to acquire the real estate. So one of the first things, in addition to education, is figuring out, what do I want to accomplish in this field? Is it I don't have money right now, but I've got the time and the ability to identify a deal? That's the biggest skill set you have there, right? And the ability to identify a deal, because money and everything else is out there. You just have to be able to identify the deal. And that comes with knowledge and understanding. When you can master that, it becomes very, very easy. So understanding what it is that you want to accomplish, target specifically those types of notes, and do it with an educational background. I mean, that's the secret sauce, I guess, in a nutshell.
And you said one thing there that got me thinking. So I just had, I just had a new, well, I didn't have the newborn, but we have a baby girl now. She's now 8 weeks old. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm thinking, 8 weeks might be a bit early to start teaching her about notes, but I mean, eventually this would be one of those things I'd want my child, my only child, to know about, because if they learned this, where would they be when they're our age, right? Where would they be? But we never learned this stuff. Kevin, did you learn this in high school?
No.
How about college?
No.
Come on, there has to be a trade school that teaches this.
Nothing.
The answer is no, no, and no. No, nowhere, nowhere. They don't teach this. This is that knowledge that you learn. You work with someone like Kevin. You learn how to do notes the right way. You learn the advanced strategies, but then don't be greedy. Don't hold that in. You got to share this. You got to talk to other people, because honestly, like my daughter, she's going to learn this stuff. And again, like I said, I got to figure out where that entry point is. Is it 12 weeks old? I mean, there's got to be a certain point where they can start remembering things, but I'll get her with you.
Yeah, I'll tell you that I don't remember the age, but I do remember the moment. I was buying a lot of real estate at the time. And, the note business goes through ebbs and flows. And back, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, our inventory was limited to what I call mom and pop notes, somebody who just sold a house with seller financing. You didn't have banks. You didn't have REOs that were selling notes, which we have today. But it was just that limited inventory, and the inventory started to dry up. So I started thinking, well, it's time for me to shift back into real property, and I bought a lot of fix and flippers. And I remember my wife would help me in the business, and our son, he was knee high, whatever age that was, she would know. But I remember taking to one of these houses, that needed work, obviously, and we're walking in, and you get all the, all the smells and, the smell of money, so to speak, but you know what I'm saying, just the rundown house and everything. And I look at my son, Britton, and he's just tearing up, I'm like, come down. I'm like, what's the matter, buddy? He's like, I don't want to live here. You're not going to live here. We're going to fix this up for another family. You're going to stay in your house. And it's okay.
Important lesson.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I know where you're coming from on that. And, as they get older, and it's crazy to see, but he's 24 now, but as they get older, I remember him, he was a tennis player, played in college, and everything, but in high school, he's like, Dad, I think when I'm playing tennis, you're going to have to manage my money in the note business a little bit. And then, when I retire from tennis, I'll join you in the note business, which was awesome. So I hear you, but it's one of these skill set things. And you're right. It's not taught, well, thankfully, I mean, people like myself now, teach this to other people, but sure, the earlier the better on this stuff. And, that's another good thing with this industry. Well, here's a great way to do it. You hire your children in the business, right? They have to do something for the business. Well, they can probably work on the computer, whatever. Pay them a salary. They're earning income. They can open an IRA. You can invest in a note with as little as $100. Or in the fund for $200. So your child then, you're paying them enough money, put some of that money in an IRA, tax deductible salary you're paying to them, tax free to them, goes in a retirement account. I mean, where are they going to be in 30 years, 20 years? I mean, it's crazy.
Exactly. It is crazy. So folks, you got to really take this knowledge. I say it every single episode. It's not about the knowledge you're getting. This is great. You're all fired up. You get excited about this because this is a new thing. It's something that can change your life, change your income. But what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit back and be like, oh, that was cool. All right, on to the next. Or, keep scrolling through, your phone to find the next stimulation. You need to take this stuff and you need to actually take action on it. Hey, he said, you want to start with $200? Start with $200. Get your feet wet. Like, you could just dip the pinky toe in, like, try it out. Then start learning. And hey, maybe you really like it. Maybe this is the one thing that changes the course of everything for you. Hey, maybe you're you're at a point where you're getting ready to retire, and this is an option that provides you a steady income during that retirement. Or maybe you're a new parent and you're thinking, wow, this is something I want to teach my kids for a legacy. You see, there are so many different avenues and so many different ways you can take knowledge and apply it in your life to change your life and other people's lives. Don't ever be greedy and just take everything for yourself. Teach people what you know and show people the way to get the life that they want. And Kevin's one of the people that can certainly help you. And we bring all sorts of amazing people on this podcast. Kevin's just another one. But what I love is Kevin's dedication to teaching people how this works, how the note business works. And I'm not an expert in the note business, so I look to people like Kevin. So Kevin, if my audience wanted to learn more about this, where would they go? I know Real Estate Without Renters is, kind of the name of your company. So how do they find out about Real Estate Without Renters?
Yeah, realestatewithoutrenters.com. Again, you want to dip your toe in and find out if this is for you. I've got a #1 bestseller on Amazon with the same title, realestatewithoutrenters.com. If you're interested in our fund, it's MWM, which stands for Money with Meaning. It's MWMfund.com. And you can read all about it there and what it is that we do. And it's a social impact fund, by the way, because our goal is to help people stay in their homes. And that's going to be a big problem, coming up with this whole virus pandemic and people not being able to make payments. But that's the easiest way. I also have a podcast myself, same name, Real Estate Without Renters show, so they can check that out. I have a YouTube channel, social media and all that other stuff. All
right. So I know I've gotten a lot of great knowledge out of this, and golden nuggets were dropped, and the audience, I'm sure, got a lot out of this. So folks, take the time, look up Kevin, check out Real Estate Without Renters. You can't forget that name. And Kevin's done a good thing where everything is, consistent across the board. His book is the same, his website's the same. So you can't forget that one. You don't even need to remember Kevin's name. Just remember Real Estate Without Renters. So Kevin, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Real Estate Money School.
My pleasure, Chris.
So for those of you watching that are still with me, let's go back to your journey to becoming a rebel banker. You know what we said. It's not about knowledge. It's about application of knowledge. That's what actually changes your life. So go out there, take action, check out Kevin's website, check out his programs, get his book, grab a copy of my books, Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery or The Private Money Guide. And again, I gave you both these books for free. Just click the link, moneyschoolrei.com/book. Or if you want Mapping Out the Millionaire Mystery, it's /new book. Thank you for joining me for this episode. We'll see you next time.